Welcome into the January 10th edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano, got Dave Morassutti, my co-host, alongside me, and we're officially at the midway mark of the Maple Leaf season. 41 games in the books, 41 games to go. So with a couple of days in between games, Dave and I thought that today would be a perfect time to get to a mid-season mailbag. We haven't done one all year long, so this was a perfect time to do it. We put the question out there, and the answers came pouring in. So we'll answer some of those on today's Locked On Leafs podcast.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother on TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. You can also now catch us up on video format. Just look us up on YouTube. Locked On Leafs on YouTube. Hit subscribe and get Leafs content every single day, Monday through Friday. It's all Leafs all the time. Dave, it's been a while, I feel, since we've kind of had like a couple of days or weekdays at the very least in between games. And we thought it'd be a perfect time to kind of evaluate where things are at. So we tasked our viewers and our listeners to come up with questions for a mailbag, and they came through, as they always do. Love it. And why don't we get right into it, pal? Let's get to the first question of the mailbag.
Yeah, so thank you first for everyone submitting. I know we have got a good variety of questions, so I'm very happy about this. So, you know what? I just want to get this one out of the way because I knew it was going to come. I knew that someone was going to ask about it. So Michael was asking, what's your opinions on keeping Matthews with contract talks opening in July? And also, how about Nylander? Is he going to price himself out of Toronto? I wanted to get this one out of the way. There's no way, shape, or form that you should ever debate whether Auston Matthews should be staying in Toronto. Like, he is priority number one. He is the franchise player. So yes, you have to try to keep him. We already know kind of the baseline of where his contract is going to be. It's going to start above Nathan McKinnon's contract. McKinnon already started the. You always look at the new trend. Yeah, so he started the new trend. Now, when it comes to Nylander, is he going to price himself out of Toronto? I don't know if he's going to price himself out of Toronto just because I think he loves playing in Toronto. It's just a matter of, will the Leafs prioritize him? I think that's really the question there. Will the Leafs prioritize him and give him what he would deserve based on his production the last few years?
Yeah, so I think Auston Matthews, my opinion is absolutely you try and do not whatever, like you're not handing the guy a blank check. I don't think it's 15 million or bust. Like if he walks in there and he says it starts with 15 and then we could talk after that, it's like, I mean, there's got to be some wiggle room there, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I guess he's somewhat deserving of that type of contract, considering that he was coming off of an MVP season a year ago. But honestly, I still think that it's going to get done. There was the doomsday clock countdown discussion that was being had in the summer. And I don't know. I feel like the Maple Leafs will figure it out, a way to get Matthews here and keep him around long term. As for William Nylander, it actually is, I guess, maybe worries a wrong word for it, but there is a part of me that thinks, like, the way that Willie's playing, that there's a possibility he could price himself out of Toronto. Like $6.9 million is an absolute bargain for the production that he's given this team right now. there's a good chance that he could be looking for, 9.5, 10 million on his next contract. Can the Leafs afford to have 4 players making double digit salaries? I don't know if they can afford that, knowing how much money they already have allotted to some other players. So they've already been like very top heavy as a group, and considering that all these players are probably going to be looking for more money on their next extensions, because then you'll also have Marner the following season, and also Tavares, who I would imagine, if he comes back, is at a much cheaper discount. That being said, so yeah, I think that I do worry about Nylander pricing himself out just based on how he's played this year, and if he does the same thing next season. I will say, however, the cap is expected to go up between now and when those contracts are up, so that could help a little bit alleviate some of that worry. Just knowing that it could go up to as much as 87.5 million this year. It could also only go up 1 million. There's still a discrepancy based on how much debt they end up paying off the owners by the end of the year. It could be as much as $87 million. The cap, it could be as little as 83.5. But if it goes up to 87 and then it goes up again after that, maybe they could keep both of them around. But either way, I think the Maple Leafs need to take full advantage of the 2 seasons that they do have them under contract at a very cheap rate, and being this season and next, and try and win a title in those seasons.
Yeah, I think it's a little too early to know for sure until you have a better idea of what the cap. Good thing is with Auston Matthews, there's time, but also as soon as that window opens, you want to get that stuff locked down. Just like teams,
Dude, I don't want to
star players.
I don't want to be talking about this all next year at all. Like I really, really don't want to. Like this needs to be locked up by July 1st. The moment that the clock strikes at 12 o'clock and that extension is eligible, I want it to be announced. I want it to be tucked away in a drawer so that's ready to go and announced right on time. Because if not, man, is it going to get loud in Toronto. And I just don't want to have to deal with that for a whole off season, man. I just don't.
Yeah, like I think people need to realize that we don't always want to talk about certain things. It's seems like, oh, you meet like no. This is not something we want to talk about. We want to talk about the good stuff. Like
Yeah.
Not the same old, rinse and repeat sort of idea. All right, we'll go to the next question. This one I had to break it down a little bit just to make it a little bit briefer, but I'll read it out as I see it on YouTube here, so you can look at it here. So first off, he's Corey Parrish. He says, "Hey guys, liked what I've seen so far halfway through the season. So the question is, which position is still a priority, and that the need is met? And if that need is met, who is being traded? Feels like screwing with the chemistry of the team may not be a positive outcome. Sometimes the grass is as green as it's going to get, and maybe looking over the fence is not necessary." Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. We've seen in the past teams not want to mess too much with the nucleus that they've had, and they've decided that things are meshing and gelling so well that they don't want to make any big moves. Maybe a couple fringe depth pieces and depth adds. Could that be where the Toronto Maple Leafs go? I think that's potentially could be something that they do. What's still a priority? It's tough. I've wrestled with this so much over the course of the season. Like earlier in the year, I was like, they certainly need a top 4 defenseman. And then I was, they need a top 6 forward. And now I'm kind of leaning back to they could use a top 4 defenseman. Like Jacob Chikrin would look really nice in a Maple Leafs uniform. I heard Darren Dreger, TSN Hockey Insider, talk about this on the Leafs panel not too long ago, saying how he believes that the team will be looking for an upgrade on the blue line, not just adding a depth piece, but like a Jake Muzzin replacement type of upgrade. So that's probably where I also would be back to leaning, I think, is that. And what that means for me, who is being traded, I think one of those current players that are there now, I think would be included in that deal because I don't think it's an addition. I think it's um, I think it's what's the word I'm looking for? I can't remember. I can't think of what the word I'm looking for here is here, but I think it's to make this team better. Whatever that the word that I'm looking for there, I think they're looking to improve. It's not it's an improvement on what they have now. So I think that defense probably would be the priority there. So that's what I think I would roll with. But I could see them also bringing in like a middle six type forward as well. As for who gets traded out, it depends what's coming in. If it is a guy like Jacob Chikrin, I could see a Sandin or a Liljegren going the other way. Just another young defenseman that they have, along with other assets, picks, prospects, whatever it may be. From a forward perspective, I don't know if I see them moving out any forwards. Like I'm not sure I see any scenario in which they would like to trade out like a Matthew Nyes. I mean, not that he's untouchable, but it would take a pretty big piece, and I don't think they would do it for a rental. So probably, yeah, like one of those younger defensemen, I could see them getting an upgrade there, and then potentially, could Pierre Engvall maybe find his way? Like he's a UFA, pending UFA. If they feel like he's not going to come back, or an Alex Kerfoot, if they're not going to come back, and those are salary pieces that could be moved to make upgrades. Potentially, they look into those. I guess that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, that's the big one here is, it depends on the move they try to make and if they feel they need to move salary. Because if you don't have to subtract salary from the team, you're going to try every avenue to avoid that, right? If you're going to move forward, I'm going to assume it's going to be somebody who's on an expiring deal like Kerfoot, just because he is expiring. And the team, unless the team that's taking you're trading for is has a pretty high asset, you need to give up a pretty significant, not significant part of the roster, but something that like a Pierre Engvall, who's technically not a free agent, he's signed for another year. So that really is all what it depends on is what you're looking to get. I think
Isn't Engvall a free agent at the end of the year?
Oh, he signed a 2-year deal. I'm pretty sure his was a 2-year deal, not a 1-year deal. So I think he has 1 more year.
Look that up quick. I thought he was a UFA at the end of the season.
I am looking here. Oh, 2022. No, sorry, I am wrong. He is a UFA. So he's another one. Like him and Kerfoot are guys that. So I was thinking about the contract he signed before.
Yeah.
Deal. Those are two guys where, like, yes, they're right now they're contributing to the lineup. They're actually playing quite well. Like I haven't had a lot of issues with that line with Engvall, Kerfoot, and Camp, and I guess that's something that Corey's a little concerned about. If you have something that's working, why change it? But you always see, can it be better, right? And like those two guys are free agents, so you're not really missing out because I doubt one or either are going to be back just based on they're going to want more money than I think the Leafs are going to pay. You're wondering how the Leafs are going to be able to afford Nylander? Those are guys that you're going to look to cut bait with just because of necessity for the cap. So I look at that. And then when you're thinking about the needs, I see that defense as, they got a good defense, but do they have enough of that? I would like to see a Jake Muzzin replacement. I like to see them at least have that option available because they don't really have that Jake Muzzin right now in the lineup.
No, they don't. So they would have to get that externally. Who that is, I mean, we'd have to take a deeper dive as we get closer to the trade deadline, and I'm sure we will. I mean, that's kind of what we do here on the podcast. So that's, I guess, a conversation we could have another day. But ultimately, I think you're correct, and in saying if there was a deal to be made, it is as an upgrade, though. Like it's going to upgrade the team, not, another fringe addition depth add to complement the team or to, add competition to the team. I think there's enough internal competition here already. I think you, at this point, need formidable upgrades if you're going to be making any moves. All right, before we move on to the next question, let me just tell you guys that today's show is brought to you by betonline.net. It's your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to hockey to basketball. We got it all at betonline.net. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet online, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano. Got Dave Morassutti with me. If you're enjoying the show and it's your first time stumbling across us on YouTube or on whatever audio platform that you're listening to this podcast from, and you're enjoying it, we ask for you to please, toss us a like or a review, a subscribe, a 5-star if you're on iTunes. And definitely a subscribe if you're on YouTube. That'd be great. We're looking to get to 5,000 subscribers. That's our New Year's resolution. Quote, New Year's resolution. So only 50% of our viewers are subscribers. So let's make that much closer to our goal. So the Leafs have a couple of off days here. They're back on the ice tomorrow against the Nashville Predators. So by doing so, we've hit the midway mark, and Dave and I have decided that it's a perfect time for a midway mailbag. And you guys have provided some great questions for us. We've already gone through a couple. Let's go through a few more here, Dave. Let's bring out the next question.
Yeah, so we kind of talked about this in the previous question, so I wanted to kind of put an end note on this. This was from Adam Warren. Do you guys really think a big move should be made going in? It was, we need a top 4 defenseman, but the defense hasn't been an issue. Then it was, Yarncroke is not a second line player, and turns out Callie said, hold my beer. So this is kind of just to put a bow on what we were talking about before.
Yeah. Do I think it needs to be made? You know what? I don't know, man. Like I see where it's coming from. Where there were a time where, the defense, there was question marks on it, and then they came out and played exceptionally well. And then, he's right. Calle Yarncroc ends up getting a shot up on the second line. It's like, well, he's not really a second liner. We'll see how it works. But ultimately, they still would like to upgrade there. But all of a sudden, you look, and Calle Yarncroc actually, since going on that second line, since returning from his injury, leads the Maple Leafs with 7 points at 5-on-5. He's got 11 points in the 9 games since he returned, which is one less than Mitch Marner, I believe, for first place in terms of points. So, the guy's just a producing machine right now. He's got 3 goals in that time span. He's on pace for nearly 20 goals, which is something he's never done in his career. So he's performing, and he's actually done pretty well on that second line with Marner and Tavares. So do they need the upgrade there? Well, I guess they don't need an upgrade per se, but could they upgrade on him? I mean, I think at the right price, I believe that could be a beneficial thing for the Maple Leafs, which is, the exact same thing on defense. But I think for the right price, an upgrade to a Sandin, an upgrade to a Hall, an upgrade from a Timothy Liljegren, I think could benefit this team greatly as well. You do kind of worry about team chemistry, I guess, in a way, just because, it's a group that has seemed to have grown tightly together, especially when injury occurs and they're playing the system the way it's supposed to be played for Sheldon Keefe, which is a good thing. So you got to bring in the right player at the same time. But I think that this team could probably still look to make one more significant move before the deadline to really shore up this team. I still think we'll see one.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of make a move for the sake of making a move. Like, you have to make a move with the right purpose. You still have a little bit of time before you have to really know for sure what you want to do, because, again, there's not unlimited bullets in the chamber, right? And you also got to think, like I'm going to use Florida as a little bit of an example. They went and made that crazy trade deadline last year where they got almost every single option out there in the trade market, and look at where they're at now. They're potentially going to give the Habs a top 10 pick unless Florida gets their act together, which I kind of hope they do. But like that's something you have to keep in mind, right? I don't think the Leafs would be dumb enough to give an unprotected first round pick, because that just doesn't seem like something an NHL GM should do nowadays. But
Yeah.
I just think that you have to be calculated with the move you make, and you just have to really assess what that need is. If I had a preference between something up front and on the back end, I'd probably say the back end, as we said in the last segment. But if the right player is available up front, you go ahead and you make that move. You just have to. It's just something that's the biggest question mark that I think that Kyle Dubas is asking himself is, which is going to be the thing that's going to help us more. Last year they went and got a defenseman. They got Ilya Lyubushkin. The year before, they went out and they got a Nick Foligno.
Well, they also got Mark Giordano.
Yeah, and they got Mark Giordano. We saw the value in adding those guys.
Colin Blackwell was a fringe depth add, but he played minutes for this team.
It's those things you have to like. What's going to be better suited for this team, over the long run of what they're trying to accomplish this year, not just fix a short-term need.
Yeah, like I don't think this team needs another fourth line. Like maybe they could add one more little depth fourth line piece, just because I don't know if Wayne Simmons is really an NHLer anymore at this point. The guy's played 2 games, I guess, in the last calendar month. And it feels like the only reason why he got into the last game here was because they were in Philadelphia, and could be his final chance to play back in Philly, right? A place where he had, really flourished in his career. I'm not sure he gets too many more games from here on out, and how reliable he could be in a playoff series. Like, I know he's got the meat and potatoes that you like, but he just, he can't keep up much anymore. The feet aren't there. The boots just have kind of gone. And that's what happens when you get to a little over the hill there. So potentially an upgrade on the 13th forward, I guess, could work as another little fringe deal, just in case an injury occurs and there is someone you need to kind of pop into your lineup. Although Dryden Hunt, I mean, he's turned into a decent little pickup, I think, that does bring a little bit of that physicality to this team. So we'll see. All right. Actually, before we move on to another question, why don't we take one more quick break here, Dave, and hear from one of our other show sponsors, and it's your good friends over at AG1.
Yep, it's a product I've been using every day to help me with just a lot of different things I needed to get sorted out with my life in terms of gut health, energy. These podcasts, we do them 5 days a week. We got to have the energy to do it. So I'm someone that wanted an all-in-one solution, help me with multiple things, not just pinpointing at one specific thing. That's why AG1 is perfect for me. It's just one scoop into a glass of water, and I'm absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. It helps me start my day right. It's a special blend of ingredients that help support gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, and aging. So, when you're looking at simplicity, you cannot get any better than Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover. It cost him $100 a day. He created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create an optimal nutrition and routine on your own. So, just give you an idea just how much Athletic Greens costs you per day. It costs you less than $3. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's cheaper than getting all the different supplements yourself. You're really investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're hosts here at Locked On Leafs, and we're taking your mailbag questions for today and answering some of those. We've gone through a few of them. Let's get through a couple more here on today's show. So, Dave, bring out the next question.
All right. Let's go with, I know we're going to be running out of time soon, so let's go with this one here. So this is from Ethan. Opinions on what the ideal defense pairing should be moving forward, taken from what we've seen this season.
Man, such a difficult question. I do. Okay, you love it?
I already because I already kind of had a preview of this one, so I already know exactly how I want it to look.
Go ahead, answer the question.
All right, so we got Morgan Rielly and Timothy Liljegren as a pair. I think that pair could work. We've seen it many times this season. I think those two together can make a pretty decent pairing together. Go with Mark Giordano and Rasmus Sandin together. I think we've seen that pairing before. I think Giordano's good enough that you can make it work with Sandin. So we'll put those two guys together. Then you got TJ Brodie and Conor Timmins as the final pairing.
You left out
Mr. Justin Hall. So we were talking about this the other day of how we can figure out a way to keep Conor Timmins in. And we said the only way to keep Conor Timmins in might be to have Justin Hall out. Now, you can also switch things up where you can put TJ Brodie on the right side with Rasmus Sandin, or you can just have TJ Brodie stay with Morgan Rielly and have Sandin and Liljegren together. But, I think having Conor Timmins in, I just like this defense better with him in the lineup. Yes, I know that Justin Hall is an important penalty killer, but there's other guys on the team that can kill penalties. Brodie can. Giordano can. We've seen Liljegren kill penalties. We've seen Rasmus Sandin kill penalties. I think, you know what, like, if that's the only reason why you're keeping Justin Hall, he's been good. It's not that Justin Hall's been bad. I just think I like this defense better with Conor Timmins in.
Oh, man. See, this is why I think that when you look at what this team needs to do, they don't need to make an addition to the blue line. They need to make an upgrade to the blue line, because I think it would make things a lot more smoother and they would iron some stuff out. Because right now there's, to me, 4 guys, I guess, vying for 2 positions, right? I think 2 of the 4 players, 2 of the 4, Justin Hall, Timothy Liljegren, Rasmus Sandin, and Conor Timmins. 2 of those 4 players, I guess 3 of those 4 players really, are going to be in the lineup on any given night, and one of those guys are going to be on the outside looking in. What is the most ideal pairing? I think you're going to hate me, Dave. I really think you're going to hate me, but I think I'm with you on the Morgan Rielly, Timothy Liljegren pairing. I actually like the deployment there, because those are 2 guys where you're in an offensive situation. You can throw them out onto the ice for your ozone starts. And I think you'd be comfortable with the way that both of those guys kind of handle the puck. So I think that would be kind of that first little unit. You've got your shutdown unit. I am putting Justin Hall back on the second pair and alongside TJ Brodie. I think you flip Brodie back over to the left side and you make Justin Hall and TJ Brodie as your shutdown duo. This is obviously assuming that no trade is made, right? Right. So Hall and Brodie would be my second pair. And then Gio and I think you're right where it's probably going to end up being Gio Sandin, which means Conor Timmins, unfortunately, probably ends up on the outside looking in. But I think that could be like a rotation spot where some nights, Conor Timmins could slide in, and some nights, Sandin could slide over to the left and Gio comes out and he saves some rested legs. But if it was one game, I hate leaving Conor Timmins out of the lineup, but I almost feel as though although he's been really good when he's played. I think Liljegren and Sandin have also taken a step in their game and also deserve to be in the lineup.
Yeah.
And you've got more invested in those guys at the end of the day. So probably I would still have Conor Timmins on the outside looking in. That's not to say that I don't think he deserves to get into the lineup more often, and that there should be more of a rotation like we saw happen last year with Dermott. And could that mean Justin Hall's on notice a little bit? Could that mean that Sandin is on notice? Maybe you get, like I said, those couple of games that you want to get Giordano a rest. I mean, we know that TJ Brody is dealing with some ailments. Perhaps getting him out of the lineup every now and then might be beneficial. I think that they could utilize that seventh defenseman spot as a rotation as opposed to an injury plug-in. And that would get whoever the seventh defenseman you want to say, whether it's Hall in your case, or it's Conor Timmins in mine, still get those guys some minutes here and get those guys some games down the stretch. Because I think that at the end of the day, we know if any team's going to make a playoff run, typically you need to use about 8-9 defensemen on that run. So they're all going to need to be ready to go come April. So
yeah. So actually, this is kind of a good segue to this question here that I got on Twitter from the Lapsed Hockey Fan. I really like the addition of Timmins this season. I know he has had I'm sorry, I guess the word got a little jumbled here, but I know he's had a interesting, tough start to his NHL career so far. Do you see Timmins as a permanent part of the Leafs in the seasons ahead, or is he a future trade piece and journeyman hockey player?
No, I definitely see him as a piece of the future. Like I said, Hall is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. I could see him being that replacement for Justin Hall. I don't think he's going to be too expensive. I mean, the guy's barely played any games in the NHL. I don't think honestly has a whole lot to go on to try and garner a big contract. He's an RFA anyway, so there's not really anything he could do to he doesn't have much of a leg to stand on, I suppose. So I think that they already have kind of their Hall replacement for next year if they don't bring him back. So yeah, I think they're definitely look at Conor Timmins as a piece of their future. He's still young, 24 years old. He's got size, mobility, good pass, right shot defenseman. It's a lot of things that Leafs fans have been looking for a while. Hopefully he can grow into what he was expected to become, a top four defenseman, and be part of this team long term and be part of the solution here. So yeah, I think he's definitely got a future with this team.
Yeah, you don't necessarily try. You try your best to make a play like this work because there's not many out there. The Leafs don't have, a lot in the system. It's not like you have a prospect in the system you could say can easily replace a Conor Timmins right now. That's the other thing. He's a controllable asset too. He's going to be the reason why you can afford some of the other more expensive players going forward. Like Liljegren and Sandin being on $1.4 million next season, that's a blessing because you need those guys in order to make to put that cap space to use elsewhere, right? So I think the same is going to go with Conor Timmins. Justin Hall, he is eventually going to be a luxury based on what, as you kind of mentioned there. Like he's a team is going to throw stupid money at Justin Hall just because he's a right shot defenseman. He eats minutes. He plays the penalty kill. Those are all screams of signs of a team overpaying for him in the offseason, in my opinion. So unless Justin Hall takes an incredible hometown discount, I think Conor Timmins will see himself with more than just a journeyman label going forward.
Let's also not act like Justin Hall hasn't played good hockey this year. Like he deserves a pay increase, right? It's not as though a team's going to blindly and stupidly pay for the guy. It's not like when Columbus paid Eric Goodbranson $4 million this past summer. It's not that situation. I think he deserves probably in the $3-ish million range AAV going forward. I just don't know if Toronto's going to pay that. So it'd be much easier for them to stomach, paying Liljegren or paying Timmins a much smaller contract to fill in that role. So it's not that we don't think that Hall, or I'm not going to put words in your mouth. It's not that I don't think that Hall has played well and that he shouldn't be re-signed by Toronto. I just don't think they'll be able to fit in that cap structure. And, the way that Timmins has played, I think the team certainly will look at that and be like, well, we might actually have the replacement internally. So that's definitely a good sign. All right, I think we have time for one more quick one, Dave.
Okay, well, I'm gonna save one for the next podcast because we can kind of debate this a little bit more. But
Sure.
here we'll go with this one here from Meat. Is Timo Meier the perfect fit for the Tavares line? He scores and he hits. Something he does. If there's quite a, I was wondering, are there a lot of like options for the Leafs for forwards? Then I'm like looking at the options out there, like, yeah, there are. I do like Timo Meier. I think he's I don't know what the San Jose Sharks are going to look to get from him. Based on how he's played this year, that might be a very expensive ad. He's got 23 goals, 40 points in 41 games this season. His possession stats are, neat and tidy, let's say. He's very good in that regard. He is a very much an offensive player. So you're getting him because he can provide that offense that I said that the Leafs could look to get in the top six. He does hit. He has 92 hits this season. So if you're looking for someone with a little bit of mustard to the game, he can do that. He even got votes for the Lady Bing last year, which I found interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah, like he's a physical player. He's a physical player, can score. He is that, top line goal scoring power forward that Maple Leafs fans have always wanted, right? I is he a perfect fit for that line? Maybe, potentially. Do I see it happening? Absolutely not. This would cost so much in assets.
Yeah.
And the problem with Timo Meier is he's an RFA at the end of the year, but to tender him, it would cost the Leafs $10 million. That's what his tendering offer is, $10 million. We're already talking about how they could barely afford to bring back William Nylander because he's making 6.9 and it might have to go up. Now, how are you going to fit an additional $10 million into next year's cap structure if you want to try and tender him as an RFA? Yeah. Like I just don't see how that's going to work for this team. Ultimately, like it'd be great to bring him in, but I think the way the contract is structured, and they would look at that and say this is essentially a rental because we're not going to be able to tender him and bring it back next year. So it's essentially a rental, and do they want to pay the price that San Jose will ultimately get from a team that will be able to bring him in and will be able to tender him at the price that he's at? And will probably pay accordingly, knowing that they'll be getting him for 2 seasons, where Toronto, maybe not. Maybe they would only be getting him for the 1 year, and then could he end up as a free agent? Like I don't know how that situation would roll out, if they could try and move his rights somewhere prior to that happening. I don't know, but I just would he even be a good fit? Yep, but can they afford him? Do I see it happening? I do not. I think it'd be a bit of a cheaper option here when it comes to the Maple Leafs making a trade of some kind to bring in a top 6 forward.
Yeah, I just see them going definitely more towards the rental market, or if they're going to get a player with term, someone that fits their budget a little bit better. I almost forgot about the Timo Meier RFA clause. So San Jose will San Jose want to move him either, right? Like they might think that they're rebuilding, but they're not exactly tear down, have to get rid of everybody as well.
They should be,
but we know San Jose doesn't do that.
Yeah,
As much as
you're right. But that's why they end up in the position that they're in. Although, you get a chance to tank with this guy Connor Bedard out there. That might be the wake up call that GMs need. I heard some of the insiders saying that teams might be willing to finally openly tank for an opportunity to get themselves in a better position to draft Connor Bedard. Could that mean that the prices will be a little cheaper and that the Leafs might be able to benefit? Does it become a buyer's market because of that, with a bunch of teams looking to sell off pieces to get to the bottom? Potentially, perhaps. Hopefully, Toronto can take advantage of some of those cheap discounts if that is the case and that does happen. All right, Dave. Good stuff. A lot of fun. There's a couple more questions that we didn't get to, but maybe we'll get to those on tomorrow's show. We'll kind of wrap it up and do a final mailbag after we tee up the game against the Nashville Predators. But that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You'd subscribe to Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcast platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show at Locked On Leafs. We're back with another episode tomorrow. Got the Leafs and the Nashville Predators. We'll be teeing up that game. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.